And starting stream. All right, everybody, guess what? It is Saturday, April 11th, 2020. Here's a question about this coronavirus thing. They're saying it's not as bad as it could have been. And there's still people that are freaking out over it. And it's possible it was here way before. Now, two things happened on the 15th of January. One, Pelosi decided it was time to transmit, her own words, the impeachment documents. I mean, she was meaning walk it down the aisle and give it to the other people, the other side. But here's the thing. And that day also was the first actual, they've got proof of it, Chinese individual, Chinese living being that was a carrier for the coronavirus landed here in America. Coincidence? I'll let you decide. Ed, why don't you take it away?
Thank you. Yeah, we'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight, too. And that's a good point, because if we do the history, we're able to prove, and I'm going to get up to on the internet, excuse me, Bill Gates Foundation, Bill Gates owns. And see, people don't realize that a lot of this stuff, when the Senate and House bills are passing through in the 1990s through 2000, 2005 and 7, a lot of these Senate and House bills have these things in it, preparing for financial structure for the public employees to get paid, but not you. I mean, this was already written and put in place 15 years ago. So, and that's the whole bottom point, is that people got to realize that. You got to realize that you're elected public employees want your children raped. Because if your children are raped, they make no income. If there's no lies, cheating, and stealing, there's no income. And with a lie, you got a bill of exchange, so that's an income to the corporation called the state, the Senate, House, anybody else, and elected public employees government. It's interesting because 2 days ago I raised some ruckus because I am running for office. I'm getting ready to put out a press release because the media and everybody's been after me, and I haven't responded to anybody on this election yet. But I'm waiting to see how all these other people, now they have 3 other people running against me, besides me running against the original county commissioner, and all these other 3 are public employees. So I find it interesting. I've been through this before with them, and it's all the same people that ran against me last time when I ran for county commissioner, because, oh my God, we got to have the government. And this is the point, that when you lie to your children about the Public Employees Union or the police department, I mean, I just went to go down and go get gas. My neighbor drove me down to get gas for my cans. And we got pulled over by 2 foreign cops that were they said they were Toledo Police Department with Toledo outfits, and they were from another country. No bullshit. And then they come up and start threatening me. The driver's like, no. And it's like, then they come over to me and they're like, you open your door. And I said, fuck you. You got a gun. You're threatening my life. You're terrorizing me. You're a terrorist. And so, so we got in this confrontation, and next, the detective idiot who's tried to kill me more than once shows up, and then he comes up to the door, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I said, this is bullshit. You know it. I said, and where's your corporation standing? I filed it. You don't report anything. Oh, Ed, you just don't know the system. You just don't know what the hell you're talking about. So, and it's like, you just got to learn to do what you're told. And then when he said that, they all turned around and walked away and left. That's the one thing, is that when it comes to your public employees, you better start filing the charges on them. I deal with a lot of court cases, and people, we've won a lot of court cases for people, we file them, the case gets dismissed. But everybody goes, oh, the case is dismissed, we don't need to do anything, and I'm going, that's the problem with you people. You allow them to rape your children because you refuse to file the charges that they raped your child. And I'm talking, I've dealt with hundreds of CHS cases, DHS cases in the state of Oregon, literally. I've even done it for the Senate and House members where I went around different parts of the state to go pick up kids that were kidnapped and held for ransom for no reason. And that's back in the time when, this is 25 years ago when, you stole a kid and it was done and you could prove it was wrongfully done. You just drive up and you get the kid. Now today you got to go through the court system, what they call the British Roman Catholic court system. Christians. All right, this is your Christian government. I mean, the Pope just announced one world government that you Christians, if you don't follow your order, you'll be hung. Listen to your Pope. He just told you you're going to be hung if you don't do what the church told you. I mean, that's what gets to me about Christians. Roman Catholics, Muslims. I don't give a shit if you're a Mormon that was created in 1841. That's the one thing about these religious people. They don't believe in the Constitution. They hide behind the Constitution, number one. Oh, I have religious rights. Okay, you have religious rights. We all do. I have the same rights as you do. But who's enforcing the rights? That's your problem, folks, is you're not comprehending. There's no one enforcing these rights. So we need to file the criminal charges and start getting these things going in Washington, D.C. and going after their budgets. It's the only way they're going to learn. And so I'll be doing that. I got my press release I'll have out in the next 72 hours going for the county commissioner with all the news media, local structure. I'll get a printout and have that done and passed around the city. But see, you got to realize that when it comes down to it, they threaten people to intimidate you because if they don't get their job, it's like this disease that they're claiming. We have to shut down the country over this flu. Technically, it's the same thing as a flu. I put it up even with the top scientists of the world. The experts even said that less people died from this than the common flu. That's from the expert. So, I mean, when you got these experts speaking out, we got these people out there mind controlled because, religion, and we got to go pray to some God who's going to protect us. God ain't going to protect you. I really hate to disappoint people, but, when it comes down to it, I respect your religion. But the Constitution and the Indian treaties are the only thing that give you rights. Without that, you have no religion rights. Period. So learn your Constitution and treaties. If you're going to claim you're a Christian, learn how to be a Christian and protect your rights and educate your kids so that way they're not intimidated by these public servants like the police department. The Supreme Court says they work for a corporation. They have no rights. I'm going to get into federal code on that here in a minute. But they don't have rights. Your mayor, city council, these people work for a corporation. And people say, well, I'm a resident of the city. I ain't a resident. A resident means that you are a slave. You have no rights. If you claim you are a citizen, you have no rights. You claim that you're religious, you have no rights. This is a fact you are living. We are living right now today. I mean, when people are going down the road and they're getting tickets for $1,000 to $3,000 because, they might have been within 8 feet of each other. I mean, are you really paying attention to what's really going on here with you people? We got to do this and they're doing this to protect us. They ain't doing this to protect you. I mean, I got off the phone in the last 72 hours with 3 people that were literally in the hospital ICU. And, it was interesting. They didn't go there for the flu. They went in for other medical issues. And, the hospitals were empty. Literally. I mean, one guy I just got the phone with not long ago. He was in the hospital for about several hours, and he was the only one in the emergency room. The only one in emergency room for several hours. And I've talked to other people, too, around the state about, the hospitals, and they say it's packed and all this stuff. And they're going, what do you mean? We got nobody packed here because nobody's coming out because they've fear in the children and the people to control you mentally. You're mind controlled. You have no freedom. If you think of religion before you can think of your freedom, that's where your problem is. Because you admitted you have no rights. Because now you got to ask somebody else for permission, and that's exactly what you're stating. You have to ask somebody for permission. And see, and that's the problem we're going through with this country right now. That people are not paying attention and they're asking people for permission. Either you own your child or you have a right to your child or you don't. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So when are you going to start standing up? I mean, this is the problem. You know, I'm watching all this stuff. And then when I sit there and I look at this stuff, and the federal copyright law says that a copyright protection under this title is not available for any work of the United States government. 17 U.S.C. 105, Federal Code. You copyright this one? Federal copyright says copyright protection. There is no protection of copyrights to a judge, a cop, a police officer, anybody, and this is structured out of the board, the broad of clear statement. Works of the federal government as a public domain are free from use of all. So, and that's the one thing. We're supposed to be are free for use for all. So we're not supposed to pay for this shit that they're doing and they're charging you. And by specifically the United States government, remember that is Title 28.3002, the Corporation of District of Columbia, a foreign identity, not American. The statute fails to address copyright statutes and work for the state governments. Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. Puerto Rico is where your taxes go for the Queen of England and the Vatican. It turns out figuring whether the state documents are copyrighted is a tricky question. We have created a website to help that, and I will be putting this website up. I've already put it up on my Facebook stuff in the new Oregon Trackers, the United States for America Elected and Public Employee Committees Oversights. Excuse me, oversight committees, and then I have done it on the Recall Cape Brown and in the Civil War of 1866 Facebook website. And see, this is the one thing that, they do copyrights. And so when you're sitting there doing copyrights, and this is the point that people are not comprehending, this is why when I suggest to you, when you get a ticket right, you want to write the copyright structure. You want to do this, and then you have to file the charges on the cop that wrote you the ticket, on the clerk that filed it. It's called a conflict of interest statement. And see, that is the one thing that, it's like in the state of Oregon under 192, ORS 192, 018. All agencies have to have a policy of a copyright status for public record. So the cities, they have to have a copyright for the mayor, the city council. And so this is the one thing that, you want to be able to produce this stuff, because when you produce the evidence, and this is the other one, you could even go to ORS 173-770. This is property of legislative committee. So in the state of, in my town, the city of Toledo, recently on the water bills, started stamping on the water bills they're mailing to you. And now they're sealing the envelopes too. But they're writing on the envelopes and the paperwork that you get for your coupon that you're supposed to actually autograph sign under 192. But they're stamping that you are a tenant of the city. You are a tenant. The city owns you. And this goes back to Cape Brown's 2000 Administrative Act with the Democratic Party put in place to own you. Literally, you don't have a right to travel without asking some state employee. That's a reality that they put in administrative facts. And people don't read it. And then when they go to courts and they don't comprehend this stuff, and then they wonder why they're getting screwed around. Well, you're getting screwed around because you're not addressing stuff. And I always have entertainment when I always watch these people write their convictions back to the court system and the religious structure. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. But if you file the charges on these people, I've noticed when I file charges on them, everything starts disappearing. Nobody wants to talk to you. So seeing that I'm running for office now, they're trying to intimidate me. Been there before, you know. I've had guns shot to my head. I've been shot at by these cops in this area. So, I mean, and that's the one thing that people got to realize. You know, this is reality of what they're doing. And they don't give a shit about you or your children. And when are you going to start realizing that your elected and public employees do not care? Your pastor, you go to that church that you go to, he don't give a shit about you. Shit, if the cops show up, he's going to turn you over faster than anything else. You know, it's not like it was 40 years ago where, you know, preachers and pastors actually had compassion for people. But, you know, oh, I'll pray for you. Oh, I pray. Pray to what? Pray to who? See, that's the one thing. I mean, you know, everybody keeps going, I'm going to pray. And I keep asking people, who are you praying for? When it comes down to it, what are you praying for? What's going to change? You know, that's the one thing that you got to realize, what's going to change if you are doing this. So, I mean, and this is the one thing. It's like even Colorado, it gets into the structure with the state law, you know, administrative law. And your agencies and political subdivisions are obtaining and enforcing trademark or copyrights. So all they're doing is enforcing what they wrote. So I could come over and shoot you. And this is the whole damn pandemic that's going on right now with this bullshit that they're playing to the general public. I mean, you think about a pandemic that was done, you figure that would have been, you know, 40, 50, 60, maybe 200,000-300,000 people already dead right now. Whatnot? There's only, 30,000 they're claiming? And then everybody who dies in the hospital that has been rejected medical surgeries and everything, everybody who's died since after February is pandemic. So they're writing it off of that because then they're writing it off on the federal and state funding, so they're getting paid for that. Folks, they're getting paid for it off your strawman account. You know, they're billing you for the fraud. And you don't even know it because you don't even own your name. Not how many people have filed identity theft cases on themselves. You know, that's the one thing, you know. You got to file these identity theft cases. You got to file them and keep them going. You know, I've sent them in and I'm still waiting for some response. I mean, I have supposedly 2 case numbers and I'm trying to get back to them on what's going on with that. But it's really disturbing, you know, when you file this stuff and the people are not paying attention to what you're doing. And that's the saddest part. And that's the one thing that I really would like you to take consideration and to look at this federal law. Because it is so apparent under Title 17 U.S.C. 105. See, this is the one thing that people have to start paying attention to, the real world of what you're living. See, are you living or are you just a slave? Are you just doing what you're told? Are you a sheeple that's jumping off the cliff? You know, I mean, I'm going to be putting up some of these links of another thing. I got secret files that I'll be putting up dealing with religion, of what they have done on secret files, so this way they can control you, own you, live you. You know, and then you go back, I'm a Christian. No offense to you religious folks, but come on. If you're a Christian, how come you're not standing up for your neighbor? How come you're lying to your neighbor? You're lying to your children. How come you're a liar? See, I mean, that's the one thing, that how many people are actually honest with their children? Because every time when a kid starts becoming 3, 4, 5, and 6, Easter, Halloween, it's all a lie. So you start lying to your children now, and then you start, you can't tell the truth any further after that, can you? So that's the one thing that people got to realize, you know, when you start the lies, it continues. And that's the one thing I'm writing in my campaign, going against some of this stuff, to bring some of this stuff forward. But, I know people are going to attack me. They're already attacking me. I haven't even put anything out in the media yet, and I'm already being attacked. That's the amazing thing. I'm already being attacked, and I get it. I'm not worried about it. But the bottom line is, you should be worried about it. Because it's your home. Your children are coming after. And because you couldn't pay your water, electricity bill, and food bill for the last 2 months, they're talking technically through September. Now they put in an initiative bill to Congress how we're going to open up the government again. The government, folks, was never closed down. Your employees still went to work. They were still there. They were still getting a paycheck. But you were told not to, because that's a crime, because you went to work, but it's okay for them. And then the other ones, they got paid vacations, and they knew that was coming up because they had to do that, because that was part of their, their contract plan with the union. See, that's the one thing that you got to realize what the union is doing to you. The union is a British government corporation. It's not the 48 states United States Union. It's not the union that I grew up in and knew with my elders. It's not the union I grew up in with my elders. It's not the union I know anybody that even knows anything about the union today. The union is controlled by foreign governments, 100% foreign governments. Their board members, foreign governments. I just watched the deal where in Colorado, they just swore in a new Muslim for Congress. All right, they're signing these people on the Koran. You should be scared as hell. They're sitting there and putting foreign government in your system right in front of your face, and you should be scared as hell, because that way your children have no rights. And under Muslim law, they can be raped and murdered, and they can't go to jail. They won't go to jail. You got to realize there's no criminal charges can be passed on a Muslim. And the only way charges could actually be passed on these people is simple. You have to write the court case yourself. You have to file the criminal charges. And that's the other point, is getting public servants and the state attorney general and district attorney to do their job. I've got cases in Oregon where, with Governor Kate Brown and the state attorney general in the state of Oregon trying to conspire to take me out. And this has been on YouTube video. I've got the evidence. I put it out, publicized it. I've got dozens of letters written to the state attorney general on this stuff, and I'm told, oh, it's okay. They could kill you. It's acceptable. It's population control, folks. And then everybody wants to bitch and moan around about abortion. Shut the hell up on abortion, you children. It's a woman's right, number one. All right? Number one, you don't want somebody telling you how to live in your house. You don't want somebody coming in and telling you how to flush on your toilet. So show some common courtesy and respect. That's the problem. There is no respect in people anymore. Where's your respect to your neighbor? And this the other point is, how come this so-called crisis created? How come there's no food on the city parks? When I grew up, I remember, in California, in the Bay Area, most city parks, had fruit trees all in the city parks. They did. They had fruit trees. And then, I watched them in the last 30, 35 years cutting down fruit trees all around the West Coast, on city property, publicly owned property, cutting down fruit trees. Selling public property that they can't legally sell, because in Oregon they have to go through Congress and then have a vote of the people before they can sell property in Oregon. But see, Oregonians don't give a shit about their children. They love to rape their children, because without that there's no money. I get tired of these people trying to tell me they're doing something, and then I would say, well, let's do something. Let's come out with a plan. Let's sit there and solve the issue. Let's stop the problem. Oh, no, we can't do that, because then we lose our job. So I said, your job is more important than the safety of the community. That's the saddest part. And this coronavirus crap that they're putting, we went through this with the H1N virus. And all this has been programmed, and if you actually do the history on this, you find out that most of it's done by, even Pelosi invested into the corporation to kill your children. Feinstein, all these public employees out of California, they invested in these programs So they got interest and dividends checks on the stuff that you're going through right now. I mean, what was that, $14 billion that cost the country, but they got it back in taxes, interest, and dividends, and those who invested into it, they're getting the paychecks and you're not? They're talking about a supplemental plan for $1,200 or $1,400 up to $2,500. How come it's taking so long for this to be passed? How come it ain't in your check? How come it's not in your checking account right now? See, if it mattered, you know, we shouldn't have to clarify this stuff and excuse me, be tormented in this structure that you are living right now today, that you're tormented in. You know, you're not trying to tell anybody that, you know, you have a right to this stuff. That's the problem. You're not telling anybody that you have a right. You're asking permission. You're pleading to your public employees. Oh, may I go wipe my butt? You know, and that's the point. Where are the rest of the people standing together in their neighborhoods? I mean, you know, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, I mean, I know in my neighborhood, people are intimidated by the cops at gunpoint, so everybody's so terrified and scared. The mayor loves it because the mayor's a Christian, and, oh, if you don't go to church, you're a bad man, and if you don't go to church, you're bad. So that's what I'm talking about. These people, oh, if you don't have religion, their religion, you're bad. They brought their religion from England and Scotland, and they brought it from Ireland. They brought it from Spain, destroying your family. You know, I mean, I watch these TV shows where these people are praying to God, and they do all this stuff, and, you know, oh, God, oh, God. And, you know, it's like for years I've been asking, where's God? You know, I mean, shit, it sounds crazy, man. I mean, what? In the last 2 years, I spent basically 7 to 8 months literally on life support. So, yeah, I didn't see a God. I never went to God. I know if it wasn't men and women that were trained in their medical profession, I wouldn't be here. Same as when I was trained as a policy officer. And I was through shootouts and literally been through shootouts and been through these things. Lived it myself. And so, I mean, and that's the point. You know, I got my neck broken on the job protecting people. And then I was going to have to pay you. And let's put it this way. Don't forget, in the 1990s, they took away your rights to private corporation and they took it to the government. You used to, if you got injured on the job, you got a lump settlement. But then the government employees got so upset because they weren't getting what you were getting because they were government employees and you were in the private sector, and the private sector is not supposed to have rights. You ask your mayor, your city council, your public employees, your brother and sister who works for the government. Ask them the truth. You know, so seriously, sit there and start figuring out why you're so divided by your own family. It's a proven fact. You're living it. You know, I mean, it's interesting that all these talk show hosts and all these late night show people, you know, it's amazing when you really come down to this stuff that all of them are from Scotland, Ireland, England, Spain. There ain't no Americans anymore in TV talk shows or late night stuff anymore. It's all foreigners. So your television company, your TV companies are owned by the British government. And you don't even realize it. And everybody says, oh, no, yeah, that's not true. Go look at who owns the corporation. Get off your ass and prove me wrong. You can't. I've already done the research. I already know most of these corporations. I'm posting up a thing right now. It's called the Corporation Nation 2010. Who owns you? And I'll be putting that on the website tonight. I mean, on the, well, we might get it on the website when it gets there, but I'm going to be putting it on the YouTube channel tonight when we're done. Because, I mean, I want you people to realize this. You know, and see, this is the one thing, too. It's like, it's amazing me that, you know, all these people are restoring, like in Kentucky right now, they're restoring voter rights for 140,000 people. Now, I haven't read the article, but see, the thing is once you have done your time as a felon, 6 months after your time is completed, you have the right to vote again. I don't want to participate in voting because I'm not a British government. I'm not a British government servant. You know, even when if I do get elected or if that happens, I do know for a fact that I'm going to be honoring the Constitution and going through the Constitution. You know, I still have a hilarious point where everybody keeps running on this Trump stuff. And if you actually read on Trump's label for his hats, they're all made in China. You know, all right, everybody keeps saying, oh, China, China, China. Well, everything's still being made in China, and you buy this shit. You support China. You're not an American. I mean, you buy your clothes. Where are they made? China, Malaysia. Say, how much is really in this country? I remember going back to the 1980s when everybody was telling me that this was coming to light. You know, this stuff was going to be coming to light, you know, with all this crazy shit. And, you know, I was one of those that, you know, I wouldn't want to believe half of them, but I, you know, didn't want to believe them at the time. But, you know, I knew that a lot of them were telling me the truth. And that's where we're at right now with the truth. Because you're under a corporation. Now, one of you people are standing up with your neighbors and doing this stuff. You're not doing this. You know, if you're actually doing this, standing up for your neighbors and voting, you know, putting these people out of office. You know, and that's the one thing that, you know, it's like Omar, you know, the Congresswoman Omar. What the hell is she in office for? You know, this is the point. You got people that are being voted into office that legally or constitutionally cannot be. Remember, the legal government, legally, is the British government, not American government. Legal. That comes from Germany. That comes from the structure of England. You know, and so that is the one thing that always amazes me, that people are not paying attention to what's going on, what's really going on. You know, because, you know, it's amazing how the Clintons have got away with all this stuff. It's amazing how, you know, I've been watching this stuff even with Hillary Clinton getting away with this shit for 30 years. You know, so that is the one thing that, you know, it's disgusting. These people get away with it because they're buying their vote. And then they come to you and they go, well, and their attitude is, oh, I got to let it pass because it might happen to me. And so if I'm honest, I can get in trouble, but if I'm dishonest, I can make a living. And that's what it's really coming down to. It's really at that point. We are at that realistic point of fact. You know, the democracy. Everybody keeps going, democracy, democracy. Democracy. Has anybody actually read the structure of democracy? Democracy says you have no rights. You shall do what the king tells you to do. That's exactly what it means. You know, you have no rights. You do what the king tells you, or else you have no rights. It's that simple. And so that's the one thing that you've got to start doing this stuff and fighting and standing up for your children and standing up for your neighbors. Because if you don't, you're going to be walking into, oh, what was that? Everybody said, oh, that wouldn't happen in Germany again. Extermination. They're doing it right now. They put a coronavirus in. They're doing extermination on you right now, and you're falling for it. So that's what amazes me. People are falling for this stuff, and they are participating in the structure. They are literally, you are participating. And I'm going to get into a couple other administrative rules here, but I want you to start comprehending what these administrative rules are doing for you. You know, I mean, I still keep getting people sending me this crazy stuff on a virus, and it's like, I'm going by the top scientists that came out and said, here's the truth. And that's the one thing they don't want to do it. And then the other point is the other point is that, you know, there's a couple people in Oregon dealing with some things, and what always gets to me about it is, you know, it's like, you know, Nancy Pelosi saying that, oh, Trump should die from the coronavirus. We're going to make sure he dies. That's your British government talking. These people are not people. That's the one thing. These are not human people that you are supporting. And you think that they have a right, and you're supporting people that are destroying your families. You're just supporting people that are destroying this country. And you know you're supporting these people because you're still playing the game. Oh, I'm going to be able to get off on this. I could do this. I could do that better. You know, I always ask people, prove it, prove it, prove it. So that's the one thing. People are not proving their statements. They're not proving their structure. You're not claiming that you have a right. And that is the one thing, is that people need to start proving their standing. That's what I say. You know, it's simple. You write and you, what is that? File for your rights. Prove that you're a native to this country. You have rights. And I argue with people all the time that says, I'm from a foreign country, and why do I have to prove it? I came here and I got citizenship. And it's like, yeah, read citizenship, what it really means. That means you have a contract under the Civil War Act with the British government to be on this soil as an immigrant that violates the 14th Amendment. And it totally does violate the 14th Amendment. Because the 14th Amendment could never have been passed or ratified because we haven't had a congressional Congress since 1812. And I always love when people say, well, Ed, you need to read the Treaty of 1213, the Paris Treaty. And I said, yes, I have read it. Have you folks read it yourself? Do you know what's really going on with it? See, that's the point. People are not, they want to interpret words because they get taught to interpret from the religion, the Bible. So if you can interpret words, you're acting as a lawyer, an attorney. And I love it when people say, well, lawyers are different than attorneys. No, they're not. I haven't seen a lawyer go in and file criminal charges on one public employee yet. So when they sit there and tell me that, oh, they're doing this, they lie. They lie 100%. I mean, I can name a lot of these people on Facebook and YouTube, what they're doing on their talk shows. I listen to their crap, and I listen to what they're doing and just keeping people, you know, in the system. And that's the whole point. You got to keep people in the system to keep the jobs going, and that's what you want. You don't want freedom. And then those who want freedom, you have to file it, but that's the point of trying to get people together, you know, under one roof to stand up on these things. And that's where you come involved. Because right now, you know, with the new campaigns that are going on, and I don't support elections, everybody knows that, because elections are determined by the board at the time, the county board. You know, you remember those election machines are programmable, and that's the one thing as a fact. And they've improved it. There's been numerous articles across the country in the last 3 years proving how they've programmed machines and won different campaigns, and, you know, it's already been proven. So this is what disturbs me when people sit there and says, well, you have a right to this, and I keep asking people, where's the right? You know, I'm like you. I've been filing on these public servants and trying to get a public servant to do a job. That's the next point. I mean, it's like at one point I used to have some respect for some of these people, you know, and some of these other news organizations, but then I'm starting comprehending that the only reason why they're doing this is for their job. Exactly what they're doing for it, their job. So you're not doing it to protect you. You're not doing it to protect them. Everybody's doing it so I can have a paycheck. You know, and that's the point, is that if we went back to hunting and fishing and living natural, what will change that would be. What a helpful idea that would be, not only for the people, but the children. See, and that's the one thing, you got to realize that with your children, this is the problem that we're having because they're not educated. You know, I mean, I deal with a lot of this structure, and when you talk to these people, nobody's comprehending what's going on with their children. You know, all these kids are so involved in video games today. No offense, but there's one thing that, you know, they're not getting educated. You know, some parents are educating their children with video games, but there's a lot of parents that just let the video games run their kids. And that's the one thing and it's like all these so-called shootings we've had over the years. These crazy people, okay, been doing all this stuff, and they're all on psychological medication, prescribed medication. How many people that have gone out and done this? There's so many. Even shootings in Florida, they were on prescribed medication. So when you have prescribed medication and you have fear dogs that are doing this right now to the general public, and then, amazing with all these videos that are still turning up, with China and all this stuff going on, and it's like, what is the real truth? And I do have concerns, because the one thing is, when I had my first heart attack, 2013, man, I could have sworn I was hit like with a bolt of lightning. It was like, that was not something that I would consider a heart attack come from. So, and that concerns me, And the state of Oregon, the state attorney general, she doesn't give a shit about anybody. And I know that. I've argued with her on the phone. I've even talked to her and proven cases to her, proven facts. But all they're concerned about is their income, their money that they're making. I could go sit and make $150,000 a year sitting on my butt, do nothing. And that's what most of these people are doing, sitting on their butt doing nothing. So it is horrifying, that we are living in this day in this controlled environment. And you got to realize this is a controlled environment that you are living right now today, dealing with this stuff. You are controlled. You go down the street. Oh my God, a cop! You're afraid of a cop because all of a sudden you could be, assaulted. You have to live in fear. I know. I've been through it where they've tried to assault me, and I've been through this stuff, lived it. I've been through it even at gunpoint where they've threatened me. Oh, Ed, quit telling people the truth about us. You have a private corporation, you have no rights. So that's the point. And then this thing is like, what is the truth with the so-called virus? It's interesting because there's mongers out there that were trying to say, well, even your dogs could pass it to you, your cats could pass it to you. And see, and that's the point. We're not getting told the truth of any of this stuff, and then reacting. We're not going to be, able to respond to this stuff. And so that's what you're doing right now, is that you are reacting to their circumstances of putting their fear-mongering into your life, and you're reacting to it. And it is a pandemic. But you got to realize out of 380 million people in 48 states, 380 million people, and you got less than a percentage that are dying off because of this one. You have more dying off from common cold, and if you have more dying off from cancer that's been put into our system, in our food or water. Cancer is just something that didn't show up in the history. That started in the factory days. That started back in the 1800s when they started putting factories in when cancer started. And that's already been proven, how, what, why, and how. Even tobacco until the 1970s, realistically, you didn't have cancer with tobacco, realistically, because the tobacco used to be made with real tobacco. They didn't have all the additives they have in today. And now they say that, rat droppings, they could have 10% of foreign additives, poison put into cigarettes, but that's acceptable by the FDA. And then, I watched in a video with this lady who smoked for 10 years, and then all of a sudden she's on, had a heart stroke because of the tobacco, the brand of tobacco she was smoking. And so they're poisoning you. They're doing this for jobs. It all comes down to that we got to keep the machinery going. Keep the grease going in that machine. Keep the grease going. And the people just automatically do it because they react to it. They don't stop. They don't think. They're not stopping to protect their children. You know, everybody's got, oh, we got 2 or 3 jobs that we have to go do because we can't survive without 2 or 3 jobs. I mean, it's so disgusting when, you know, today the average rent for just a hole in the wall is $1,000, and your income is only $1,000. And then people wonder why the problem is. It's been literally created from your banks, from the Rothschilds, from your churches. Even your local churches are involved. Ask them. Sit back and start paying attention. Watch the people in your church. Watch who's controlling your churches and your administrative rules. You really would be surprised when you start really stepping back and seeing how the mechanics of the operation, you know, do that. But that's the one thing you got to realize, that they're going after you under statute codes and administrative rules that are copyrighted. And that's what you want to do when you do these stuff. You got to remember, they're a nonprofit agency. So you want to file a 54068 form. You know, they start getting a lot of these forms and stuff, you know, and people start talking and working together, and, you know, you start putting together groups, you know, of 15, and then it becomes 100 and 200, and everybody knows what's going on, and everybody can sit there, you know, after 90 days, nothing's done with everybody else, and everybody can write a unity letter from everybody. Here's so-and-so, here's that, here's this man, this woman, this child. How come you're not doing your job? If they stop crime and they stop lying, we wouldn't have the problems. But if they did that, they wouldn't have the jobs and corruption they have as they do today. You know, it's like a lady that is running the structure for Lincoln County. I'll be putting this out here in the next couple of days. Gene Cowan, used to be county commissioner, was a state representative who had, you know, conspired trying to put me in prison and all this stuff. And it didn't work for her. So then she had her son, Travis Cowan, who's a doctor, try to attack me, because then they sent me to Travis Cowan. Then they tried to say I was faking how do you fake a broken neck? That's what always got to me. So they filed all these criminal charges trying to put me in federal prison. You know, and then I went after them, and then, you know, trying to do that. No, you know what the lawyer said? Oh, we can't do that case. I said, well, I have the proof and evidence the government did this. These public employees, oh, no, they wouldn't do that, Ed. I said it came from the Inspector General's report. The Inspector General in Washington, D.C. said these facts. Oh, no, we can't sue them, Ed. And then all of a sudden, when you call and you talk to a public servant, and what they do, the first thing they do, oh, you need a lawyer and attorney. Go talk to a lawyer and attorney. So what the hell are we paying these mayors, city council, your senators and congressmen? What the hell are you paying these people to do nothing for? Why are you writing these donation checks to the Republican and Democratic Party? For what? They rape your children, and you send them money to rape your children. They ain't doing nothing. They know that you're stupid. Yes, we are stupid. We are buying into the shit. That's how stupid you and I are. You know, because we're still not supporting. It's like, you know, I mean, I've talked to many people going, oh, we need to unite. And I said, yeah, it's interesting. I watched some people going with the Second Amendment. They're getting ready for this attack they're claiming. And then all of a sudden, people are, you know, getting upset, and they want to do this stuff. And I keep asking people, when are you going to do something? And it's like, oh, and then all of a sudden I hear, oh, God's going to do it. We're praying to God. God's going to come save us. Well, you know, if you look at it, for 2,000 years, how many generations prayed for God for Savior when they were being eaten by the lions? Every generation goes through this. We got to pray, but there's nothing done. And then you're paying the same people that are destroying and raping your children and murdering your families. You're paying them to destroy you, and then you support them. You go to the rallies, you stand up, and you give them donations. See, it's crazy. To me, it's literally crazy what's going on with people in this fashion. I still cannot believe that people are getting away with this stuff. I still can't believe people are doing this stuff. And they're doing this, and, you know, it's so frustrating. Why are you involved in a lot of this stuff? We should be uniting together. You got a problem in your county. Great. Then we got to go to your county and we got to write and put a process together and go after them. But when? Why? Where are the solutions? So you're dealing with copyright structures of a foreign government that's not even American. And the one thing, too, is on all your complaints and all your forms, don't forget to put in the 1938 Foreign Administration Registration Act. Seriously, put it in. Because if you're not writing the structure in, how do you expect that thing to even work if you're not backing it up and supporting it? How do you expect your congressman to do his job if you're not sitting there backing this up so that way they're registered? I'm supposed to register for running for office, but technically the law says until I win, I don't have to register. Okay, but see, I have to do that, and it's like when I was running for office, I know I'm running for the British government, because that's what the city, county, and state. British government, not American. Stop lying to yourself and your children that you think it's American when it's not. It's a foreign corporation. Corporation law. Read it. Title 15. Just told you. It's law. So it's up to you to sit there and do this stuff and educate your children and make sure that the children are doing it. And see, this is the thing that is, starting to get monotonous, when it really starts to get monotonous when people are not standing up together, and that is the point. When you're failing your family and you're failing yourself, you're failing your bloodline, and that's the problem that we're living today. Because when you become a public employee, you sell your soul to the corporation. Most people call that the devil. Corporation is a foreign corporation. It's not American. So you're selling yourself to the devil. So you're living with the devil. If you want to believe in the religious and God and all that stuff. But you can type in the stuff, there's pastors and preachers and popes that are coming out now saying it's all a fraud, it's all a joke. There is no God, there's none of this. And they're saying this. But are people listening to these people that have been in this industry, their industry, for 40, 50, 60 years when they realize it? Susan Day, former Susan Day O'Connor, the former state attorney general, Supreme Court justice, came out and wrote a whole statement, which I put out and passed out, and I'll be posting that up on the YouTube channel tonight that you can read what she said. It's a fraud. Even religion's a fraud. She even writes in her statement. Because, people come in with the religion. Religion, England and Spain. It's not American. And she even quotes it in the structure of her own writings. We're talking a lady that was on the Supreme Court for 40 years. So, this is the point when people are starting to wake up, and then you don't want to listen to the people that are telling you the truth. That's the saddest point we're living. And that's the real saddest part, because these people are trying to explain the truth. They woke up, they're seeing what happened. They're bringing up suggestions how to stop this problem, and then everybody wants to jump off. It's like, I've been on several talk shows the last 10 days. And all these guys, they're coming out, how we support the Constitution and how we do all this shit, but they're in it for ratings. I've even had them say, even on their own talk shows, we're here for ratings. They don't care about you. They don't care about your family. They don't give a shit about their family and neighbors. The ratings means more to them than your family, because the more ratings they get, the bigger their paycheck. Or their advertisers. So, and that's the point. Everybody sells their soul. And then you sit there and go, we wouldn't do that. And you already done it. You've already made it a fact. So, anyhow, realize that you are in a corporation structure. Realize, I'm going to be putting this video up, and it's a 3-hour video, and I'm going to be watching it myself here in the next day and a half. It'll take me that to bounce back and forth, and I'll end up watching it twice in the next month. But I mean, read this stuff because it's amazing what you pick up. Michael Moore used to do a lot of interesting videos on the government, and Michael Moore is a very liberal left-winger. Everybody knows that. But some of the stuff he put out was good. Excuse me. And, I used to go down to the library myself and check out all these videos with Michael Moore and a lot of these videos. Because, I got rid of radio or a TV set a long time ago, so I went in the library, used to get a lot of videos. And now the library's got rid of a lot of historical videos because they don't want the truth out. Because we got to do this democracy lie, democracy lie, democracy lie. Democracy, you have no rights. The Indian Constitution and Native treaties, and this is the point that we got to start talking about Indian treaties and the Constitution. The Indian treaties and the Constitution in the same sentence. Because without the Indian treaties, you have no Constitution, you have no rights, that you're claiming that you have a right to be a Christian. So if you're claiming you have a right to be a Christian, you better start reading the treaties and the Constitution and quoting it and stop lying then. Otherwise, you're just a bullshit Christian like everybody else is just a fraud. You're just hiding behind that cloak. And that is the one thing, they already made a visible coat. So, and that's not bullshit. You can type it on the internet. The military had that out 15 years ago. I remember reading Popular Mechanics back in the 70s, and that was one of the ideas they were pushing for back in the 70s. So the military spending is really outrageously, but, they're doing this. And then you got to realize, that the military, has some areas, they have 10 years of food supplies down in the canyons. And those canyons are, only one way in and several ways out, but those are for, the important people to get out on the back sides of them. Remember, as a good lord, look up the dictionary of lord, what it really means, not the Bible. I'm talking lord of the British law. That means the lord is supposed to give his life for the king. So what a lord really is, it's like a knight. He has to give his life for the king. And so, it's sad. That's the way people, I used to think that way in a sense, too, until after I got my neck broken, because I used to get paid to do a job, and used to think, I was going to save the people and save and do all this shit, and until I really stepped out and realized the system was not to save and protect the people. It was to gobble you up and spit you out and throw you into the next dumpster. And we are factually living that right now today. We got this virus that they say is out there, and there's the patents done by Bill Gates. The Bill Gates Foundation made it. It's publicly known now. So I'm just wondering, when are people going to start standing up? When is the challenge going to happen? I'm doing it. I got stuff on the Facebook and website. And also, too, by the way, I would like to thank the 100 new members that we have on the New Oregon Tractors Facebook, the United States Elected and Public Employees Oversight Committee, the Civil War of 1866 Lawful Bloodline Natives, and then we have the Recall Cape Brown. So we have well over 100 new members into these Facebook sites just in the last 24 hours. So, I know people are getting it, and now the point is that, now collectively we got to start putting this stuff together and standing up. I'm trying to get things together. We got a couple people that are dealing with their kids in the state of Oregon. I'm still disturbed with the Bundy bullshit. This poor girl, they had to steal her kid. She's 13 years old, forced her to surgery. God damn it, you're full of shit, man. I told you how we could stop it, and you just sat there, we got to go pray to God. We don't do anything without God. But there's nothing done, Ammon. Where's God? This is the one thing that gets to me about these people. I mean, Mike Smith and Mike School and I wrote up the Bundy's case. When all that just came out. And we're trying to explain to these people, no, they went to the corporation, then they went back to the district courts. Not once did they take it to a federal court. They took it to a district court. So they did what their master told them. Oh, that's right. Romans 13 says, thou shalt do what the government tells me, because God put the government to control me as my master, because I'm too stupid to know how to know the system, how I could comprehend to read what the system is supposed to work and what they're supposed to do by their administrative rules. So yeah, I call these people out because they're bullshit. Because how come they're not standing together and putting this stuff together and protecting your family? It's all about me, 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 me. Oh, come save the Bundys. We got new books out. We're selling books. Our book sales, and then we got our deal in the summertime. So that way we're charging $1,500 a week for people to come out to experience the ranching experience, to be a cowboy. I mean, come on. Have you lost reality, people? Realistically. I mean, you lost reality. Why are you paying to go be a cowboy? When, if you want a job, go do a job. Learn the trade. Go do something. But then you're paying the privilege. I mean, I've known friends and family members over the last 20 years. They've gone to these ranching things, and these cattle drives for 10 days, and paid $1,500 to go on these things for 10 days. And what do they get out of it? They're not protecting their family. They didn't learn how to hunt and fish. They didn't learn how to skin an animal. They go through this process, and they have beans and food that is already catered to them at these, cook-offs, or whatever you want to call them. They're already catered. See, that's the point. There is no real men on this field. Because it's like that poor 13-year-old girl, goes to the state of Oregon and, gets forced into surgery. Even her own damn mother didn't give a shit about her daughter because she wouldn't file criminal charges. I know. I wrote it. I sent it to her. Oh, I can't do that. That's what pisses me off, And then you say you love your child. You don't love your child. You let the state come and do it. Now the kid's got other problems because of the surgery. But that's okay. Because I'm the mommy. I didn't want to protect my child. So, I mean, that's what gets to me. I mean, I sit here day in and day out, and people know I don't really sleep. Sometimes, I've even been on talk shows where I fell asleep because of sleep deprived, because I'm working on somebody's case, and then I get their case done up and send it to them, and, because I write the administrative rules in it. I write the way it is. I'm not quoting what an attorney or lawyer does because I want to quote the charges. This is what the lawyer did. I mean, I had one major court case that if the lady would have done her court case 2 years ago, we could have had DHS budget, 30% of DHS budget in the state of Oregon cut. But she was talked into not doing it because then all of a sudden when she started progressing, dealing with this, they provided her a 3-bedroom apartment. They provided her a brand new car. They provided her guaranteed food stamps in the system for 5 years for not going and pressing the charges and filing it in the Supreme Court, Superior Court. Not a district court. And so she went and took the easy way out, and then, she still hasn't got her children, but now she's got a fancy car. She's got a nice apartment. She sees one of her kids every once in a while, but she doesn't have her kids living with her, but, and that's the point. How come people are not standing together when their children are taken? Divide and conquer. It's so simple. Divide you, conquer you. They've already done that. They divided your family up because now we got you arguing because you're saying, one side says a woman has a right, the other side says you can't do that because God says you can't abort a child. Hate to say it, folks. Who's God? What God? Why God? Because if you guys were not arguing about that, more than likely you wouldn't have abortions because nobody would be arguing about the bullshit. It wouldn't be in mind control settings. You would learn how to have respect for one another. Oh, that's scary. That's horrifying. Consideration, honor, and respect to one another. I mean, that's horrifying. Think about it, you know? My God, you had to be honest. You had to tell the truth. You can't lie. You know, that's the one thing is most people cannot live without lying. I mean, we raise the children at 5 years old, the average child, not the ones that are out there being homeschooled and the ones that are parents are actually taking time with their kids, but the ones that are government-structured programmed by the state and city and counties, you know, they're being programmed and they don't have any rights and, you know, just lead them to the slaughterhouse. And so when they start doing the FEMA, they're already doing FEMA camps. They're doing this execution right now called the coronavirus. I mean, because everything is being diagnosed by the coronavirus when people are dying. You know, that's one thing, you know, I would never sign my rights off to the hospital or anybody. I held everybody liable. Scared the hell out of people. You're not going to do that? And I said, no. It's my life. It's not your life. I don't work for the government. I don't work for some fictitious God or corporation. Remember, God is your corporation. You know, people say, well, God was in the money. Well, God never even knew about money or Jesus Christ, whatever you want to call whatever thing is. You know, nobody dealt with money. The city started putting that, and you go back 2,000 years when the city started stamping, you know, gold and silver pieces, and you had to do that in some of the cities, not all cities, but some cities were doing that. And so that way the king or queen would get, you know, for every 100 pieces that were passed, they got a piece that was thrown into their coffers called a tax. And that's what you're doing today. You're paying all these taxes. 60% of your income is taxed. Remember, you pay a water bill. Remember, that's got to be taxed. And then not only that, the contractors, because if your city put in new water systems, that's already taxed on top of a tax on top of a tax. So, I mean, you know, when they put in our city water system here, you know, 5 years ago here in the city, 5 and 8 years ago, you know, I mean, $30 million they spent on new sewer systems and shit that they only spent probably, I would say, $8 million. And where's the rest of the money? Because I asked them, you know, we question that. Not only I, but other people have questioned the finances. And we got threatened with our lives, literally threatened, you know, by the council or by the police department, the police chief, you know. I mean, even the present police chief of Toledo, Mike, you know, used to assault my fiance, try to shoot me a couple times, threaten me. You know, now he's got his flunky still doing it. So I know I'm living it, but I'm speaking out. I'm not, you know, I'm still here. You're still there. So now it's time that either we start putting this stuff together or we just say to hell with it. We all just bow our head. I have a problem with that. I don't know about some people, but, you know, we can start this issue of putting it through the cities and counties and putting it in a waking scenario. I'm going to be putting my press release out when I do that for running for office this week. I'm going to be putting several ideas of how to put some city programs together. Non-corporation city. You know, that means, you know, the people have to stand together. You don't want the mayor involved. You don't want the police chief involved. You don't want anybody in the government agency involved. You want to make sure that the people that your neighbors are the ones that your neighbors are involved. So, anyhow, with that, why don't we wrap it up at this point? Why don't we open up for calls? We'll go from there. Anything I missed or that I didn't bring up, we'll bring up next week. You can always email your comments to new.Oregon Trackers. There's a deal that on our website you can do that. I do get emails from people off that website. I do read them. I do read all the emails I get from that site. I do post them at times, and we'll get them back. We'll get them on the YouTube channels, so that way you're reading it. But I will be putting up this structure dealing with the copyrights for your federal government and how it works again. But remember, it's a copyright. Stand up. It's like when this cop is sitting there, you know, at the window 2 days ago. telling me, you open the door and you get out. And I'm like, fuck you, you're an armed guy. I ain't going to do that. And you don't have no rights to tell me what to do. And then he calls, the other idiot in, and then he comes up and, has his moment, and they all jump in the car because they know I'm telling the truth. Screw you. But, I mean, and they do this intimidation. They do this for public embarrassment because now we're pulled over the side of the road. So everybody's got a gawk. What's going on over there? Because my neighbors, shit, they're all slaves here. I watched them all turn each other in and play games with each other. And, sister didn't like what the sister did, so I called CPS and report her for not hurting her kids but saying something. So that way she's being investigated, the kids are taken, and they didn't need to be taken. And, that's what I'm saying. This is how tit for tat for the stupidity of people are today. The mentally challenged. This is mentally challenged people. I would say mentally retarded. Because only retarded people would do stupid shit. So anyhow, let's open up the floor.
All participants are unmuted.
Anybody got any thoughts or questions tonight?
What video were you talking about?
What city? I'm in Toledo, Oregon.
No. What video? You said there was a 3-hour video you were talking about earlier.
Oh, the video, I'll be posting it up. That's the Unions Corporation video. And I will definitely have it put on the YouTube channel as soon as we get off tonight. I'll be posting it up. And if you're on my Facebook sites, I did already post it up in the last hour on my Facebook sites.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that you get it too. And like I said, your email, I'll email it to you.
Oh, you can post it on mine. You know who this is.
Yeah, I know. Didn't I post it on yours?
You probably did. I just have to research it. I was into the show.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, no, I got this morning. I thought I posted it on your wall, but I'll make sure to get it done here when I get off here.
Well, if not, I always troll your wall and pick stuff off of it and post it on mine anyway.
Well, I know that. I do the same on yours sometimes.
Yes.
I do that with a lot of people. I mean, like I said, I spend literally 8 to 10 hours a day just on a computer going through my stuff and people's stuff and posting it up and reading and watching videos. And so.
Well, and then to confirm what you were saying earlier about going to these representatives, you might as well go ahead and, go make a cookout or do something other than that, because we did it down here. We went to Gilbert, which was the local one, and then we went to Ben Klein, which is the state one in Virginia, and both of them did exactly what you said. You need to go get a lawyer. In the actual rules and regulations, you're supposed to defend us if you were a former lawyer.
Right, and that's what they are. When you're elected a public employee, you're a lawyer, and they're supposed to be protecting you and defending you, and they're acting the same thing as the British government does.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I want to say congratulations and welcome to the 100 new people that you have. I'm praying, I guess I should say, hopefully they will tell 2 of their friends who will tell 2 of their friends so we can get more going.
That's what I'm hoping for. I was shocked that I've had that just in the last short period of time. People have been joining. Other people have been sending other people into the groups. And I've already gotten comments from people that when I put them in the groups, and people were thanking me for putting them in the groups, and then they're amazed of information that they're able to get off the group. So, and that is the point, is making sure that people have a right, and that's what we're making sure. Because if we don't protect it, we don't protect the native treaties and the Constitution, you have no religion, period. I don't care what religion your fantasy mind tells you. If you're not protecting the Constitution and the Indian treaties, there is no future, period.
Yeah, I've gone full native. That's the way I feel about it. You just got to go full native.
Well, and I've talked to, let me tell you, I've literally talked to chiefs and chiefs' wives over the years, including with the ones in South Dakota. And they apparently had one victory on the oil line now. And I've been telling them, and I try to get the chiefs to comprehend it. The two chiefs of the South Dakota tribe, I try to get them to comprehend to file the criminal damages on the board members. And all I hear, oh, we can't do that to their family. They're doing it to yours. Go ahead. Oh. Anyhow, they're doing it to yours. And then when people sit there and go, I need compassion, I can't do that. And when they're doing it to your family, you're allowing this to happen to your own family. That's what shocks the hell out of me. You know, we can't do it to the same people that is harming their own family. It doesn't compute to me.
You might have to use the shotgun wedding theory behind that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I almost got involved in one of those when I was younger.
I wasn't trying to bring up bad things, Ed.
You know? Well, when you're young, you do stupid things. Or you do smart things, but you don't realize it was stupid or it was smart at the time. So, but it is one of those things. We are living this crazy stuff right now today. So, it just depends on the future that you want to live.
Well, and then there's a lot of like music out there. I posted a lot of music the last couple of days. The Who's Eminence Front is a good one, you know, because he says right in there it's a put on, and it really is. The whole thing is a put on. So.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, somebody else chime in. Come on. This is what this is for. It's discussion time.
Yeah, this is what we're supposed to be working with each other.
May I?
Yep.
This is Marshall Meekum in Utah. You know, there's so many things. You said so many things. It's hard to comprehend so much, you know. But one thing that you said that touched me, or I was just going to ask about. You know, there's 450,000 people die in the United States of tobacco every year, just off of cancer of some sort, of just smoking alone. How come they haven't stopped all the stores and shut down all the stores to stop that? You know, I mean, it's interesting that how they're stopping the whole world. I live in this town here, and you can't believe it. It makes you so upset you just want to almost start shooting people. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, it's like the town's barren, their businesses are all shut down, and for what? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's just an interesting thing, that why they're making such a big deal about nothing that doesn't make any sense at all, when there's so many other things that they could make big deals about, like the tobacco thing. Why don't they do something about that? But no, they're not doing anything about that. Obviously, it's all about, must boil down, it's all about money.
That's
exactly
a
the fact.
That's a fact. How many people remember when they jacked the prices on cigarettes and what it was for?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was. You're right.
$1 a pack for cancer treatment. And where'd the money go? How come the cancer people are not getting treated?
Roll, Ed, roll. Come on, baby. That's exactly what I was talking about.
And then we got somebody like Romney here in Utah that wanted to stop all the...
Hello? What happened?
I'm not sure on that one myself.
It appears he dropped off, but I just got something real quick to say. Something I kind of made a connection with. You know how supposedly all the borders are closed down from outside, except for Americans coming in from other countries? Mm-hmm. Well, we got basically, if you got a jug of water and you got a nice puncture spot in there, how well is that going to hold the water? Not very good. Now, they're saying that everything's going to calm down on this coronavirus thing. And they're hitting the plateau, they're saying. Here's the question. If it flares back up, is that going to give them more power? Most likely. How are they going to flare it back up? Oh, I got an idea. Utah is currently under occupation by the U.N.G.
Oh, yeah. United Nations still running the state of Utah. Utah is the Mormon capital of religion.
Have you heard the latest on that?
No, not recently. I haven't checked back.
Okay.
Have you heard something new?
Yes. So when the police are coming out, there's a UN representative police officer with them.
Oh, I'll gotta get that and put that up.
Yeah, I'll try to find it and send it to you. I did find that one from Florida. I hope you got that one. That was one, the guy won the situation against the chemtrails. But yeah, that's the new one. They're sending UN idiots with them, and they're similar dressed, but they're not. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they're wearing a
That must have been like the cops that did that to me the other day, because they were not Americans.
That's what I'm saying. That's when you mentioned that. I was wondering if you ended up with a couple of UN ones. They will dress them in the outfits within the town, but they're not acting the correct way. You'll notice by difference of mannerisms.
Right.
They're a whole lot worse, cockier. They really are. And I've had a few friends of mine that have, asked about it, and it was like, you're not dealing with normal here. You're dealing with UN, or you're dealing with Islamic ones. And that's the one that we haven't figured out. Are they both involved? Have they got the Islamics and the UN together, and you have one from each side? And like you said,
the UN and Islamic are the same damn thing when you do the history on it, because they're still running that because the Muslims took over in London.
Yep. But yeah, and then on the other one, when he was just mentioning, what happens if it does flare back up? Are they going to shut us back down again? Is that the?
Well, yeah, then they're going to be shoving people into FEMA camps, and then the executions will start happening. That's exactly what's going to happen. I read this report back in, what was that, 97, 98? I used to have, like I said, boxes of all this shit when they were throwing this stuff away in the Capitol. When I was up at I used to grab all this stuff. They're throwing it away, and so I would get permission to take it with me, and I would have to ask permission from the head of the Republican Party or the head of the Democratic Party. And so they would give me permission, so that way I couldn't be charged for taking government documents. And you got to remember this reality, folks. Because even when a congressman or senator gives you something in their office, you have to make sure that you got it clarified to leave that office with that instrument, because it's still their property until they authorize and says it's yours. They won't tell you that for a fact. That's how people get arrested after the fact and they play these games. But I know this for a fact because I've been doing this for 35 years. And so when you get stuff, you always want to clarify it. And that's a good point. These guys, man, they were just like going off on me, and then when Curse, the idiot cop, shows up, and then he's like, I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, the only reason I know it is a friend of mine actually got hit with it, and unfortunately, since he's a former military, he's not in a normal jail situation. And that's what he was questioning. He got released, but the first thing that he found out was that they aren't normal. It's UN and somebody else.
Right.
So.
In other words, we're already being invaded. We were invaded a long time ago with the corporation. Now they're stepping up the game and doing actual physical boots on the ground invasion.
Right.
Well, then that's the other one. My understanding is the 30 states that they have troops in, there's UN representatives with those troops.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm trying to get a line on it. But, of course, we're having issues. Everybody's having issues, especially with electronic devices also, which, that's probably going to be the next step. And I'm fully prepared, because if you watched what happened in Italy, Greece, Argentina, Iceland, Switzerland, they shut the power down for 2 weeks. And that's what they're talking about now, is that for the next 2 weeks, everybody's going to be without work, that we're all going to be out on the street.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like they're doing with the home eviction, like the governor of California says, don't worry about paying your mortgages. We won't do foreclosures on you. But the minute they authorize and put that in place, in 30 days, if you don't make that payment, then you're foreclosed on. They're not telling you that. So everybody's thinking, I get all this money now, I'm not making my, $3,000 a month house payment, so I go buy supplies and food. They're stocking up, and then when the sheriff comes in and shoots them off their property, and then the state claims all that assets as theirs.
Well,
exactly what happens.
Now, I know Rob Ryder and Phil Hudock did one on that one, and you want to ask about the genealogy and to trace who sold what to who. Now, what Phil Hudock and Rob Ryder did on that one was they were all like, okay, well, I need to see how it was sold to you, and when did I authorize that?
No, and I listened to both of those guys, and I've talked to both of those guys personally myself. And yes, they are right on the cue. I've even had Rob Ryder, a guest on our talk show before.
Yeah, I know. I like good old Rob.
So, and that's the one thing that people are not paying attention to what's going on, and that's the point that we're trying to get the message out, so that way you're protecting your assets.
Well, the other
your asset means your ass. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, the other one with Rob is that he actually is trying to help a lot of the military personnel, being that he was a former military individual himself.
Yeah, I know.
And I really like what he's got going on with that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the assets, assets.
Yeah, most people don't comprehend that one, do they?
Well, you got to break the words down. You really do. I mean, unalienable, unalienable. You really got to break them down. Theory, C or Y. The Raytheon one, Raytheon. You got to sometimes break the words down. For people. I got lucky. I went to school with a guy who broke everything down into syllables. And that's one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm so glad I went to school with him.
Yeah. Yeah, that one I can comprehend. I had a teacher that used to do that when I went to school. Would break things down. And it has to be done that way because we are basically educated stupid.
Well, there's another one that I've watched on YouTube. It's called Chiron Last or Chiron Last, Chiron Last, and he really breaks words down. Then he goes back to the ancient etymology and Hebrew situations, Italian, Greece, everything. So,
I'm trying to remember Miller's first name.
Carl?
No, not Carl Miller. I know Carl Miller.
David. No. David Wynn.
David Miller, Dave Miller that died. He was from Hawaii.
Yep.
Syntax. He broke down the syntax language.
Yep. And then Christopher, Mark Christopher?
Yeah, his buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering what happened to what's the other one that was on the reservation for a while? Gould was his last name. I don't know.
I haven't heard anything from him personally myself for a year and a half. Well, I've been in and out of the hospital, but it's been a year, about 2 years since I heard from him.
Yeah, well, according to what's been written up, his family said something about he ain't right in the head, but we all know how that one works out.
Oh, yeah.
Jay Gould, that's what his name is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I had that with another friend of mine. His name was Joe Gallup. He was a newspaper man. He went to become a lawyer. He actually studied law with the former district attorney in my county who tried to kill me, and he knew it. I mean, Joe even told me that they were trying to kill me. Because when I opened up some stuff, because I opened up in 2000, when was that? 1999, 2004. 2004, they closed the fishing on the Oregon coast down in the state of Oregon. They closed it down. Well, we had no fish. And they lied. They took the subsistence fishery quotas that the Native Americans had, and they gave it to the commercial fishermen. And so I proved this beyond a shadow of a doubt to Joe Gallup because we argued about it for a month. And then when I walked in with the paperwork, and this is part of my Senate bill, because my Senate bill in that area was 2005, my Senate bill gave the man and woman the right to catch 25 fish of whatever fish it was per day. Yeah. And then that way you had enough that you would feed your freezer because 25 fish, everybody did that or family did that. You get 100 fish, Shit, you got your freezer stocked for 6 months to a year.
Well,
so,
I like the fact that I like the fact they're going after the church people now, and a lot of people don't understand the 501c3 puts you in the grips of the government. Under the 501c3, you're not allowed to talk about it. Now, if they did maybe a 508, you could
same thing. 501 through 509 is the same thing. There's no protection in it. I know. I've been a 501c3 through 9 myself. You see, let me explain this real facts to folks, because when I filed and separated myself from the state of Oregon and filed it and had it certified by the Secretary of State and the Oregon State House and Senate, and I have it certified by them, the minute I had it certified that I was not a corporation member or citizen, and I was a native bloodline, and proved that I was native bloodline, and proved my bloodline going back to 1770, the Cherokee Nation, proved it, and then all of a sudden, all my 501c3s and my church and everything that I had, I got a letter from the state that says all my 501c3s were canceled, and don't ever try to do it again because you cannot qualify.
Well, no, that would be taxing you.
Well, yeah, I know, but they can't. That's the whole point. They see, that's the point. People don't get it, because you're putting in your tax structure, and your tax structure goes into the IRS, that goes into Puerto Rico, that's run by the Vatican and the Queen of England, and they come back to dictate to you how you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
It's like I wrote churches. You can write off your doctor's medical and your electricity bill to the tax structure. It's called a 1099 form. You can write it off. Pay your water and electricity bills. Churches do it all the time. So when I filed to deregulate myself, I got attacked pretty heavily by the state for a month on phone calls and, are you sure you want to do this, Ed? And, if you do this, you're going to lose this benefit. And I said, what benefit? I don't have a benefit to begin with. And then I get called people all the time and says, well, you're disabled, Ed. You should get on food stamps and welfare and get all this shit. And I'm going, no. I'm not taking it from that, because it's not the way it was written back in the 70s. It's written on the new policy with the Queen of England after, William Jefferson Clinton passed the Social Security Act. So I'm under the original Social Security Act before the new one came in effect in 1994. So the original one was American, and that was the foundation that was protected by Congress. Now the new one, after William Jefferson Clinton put that through in 2004, now it's protected and still run by the Queen of England. And you can type that in the internet, it'll come up. APFM is a good one that you can type in, APFM, and it'll come up, the Queen of England. A lot of these lawyers and these guys, I've been in these groups for 35 years, been preaching this shit. I remember people used to call me really crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden, all these guys that finally had to come out and say, well, Ed, you screwed us up because we lost some of our funding because of you. And I'm like, why? You shouldn't have lost your funding because of me. And they're going, well, people are listening to you. And that's the point. Stay out of their system. I can go down to food pantry and all that other stuff, but, I don't go down there. And right now I'm trying to get the rest of the material so I can build my other 2 gardens, so I can build my gardens, because I got enough area I can collect the rainwater that I got, keep myself supplied. I got enough canning jars and stuff. And we're right now living this point. And I do got to find the one site I will be putting up probably tonight if I find it. I got to do some research, but I had the structure of what the Indians used to use for toilet paper, the actual plants they used to use that didn't have effect but never used poison oak and poison ivy. Poison oak and poison ivy is not a pleasant structure, especially when it's between your legs. And you don't go blowing in the grass where that's around either. Yeah, but I mean, people don't get what's going on. And some of the people who are getting it, they're just selling their soul, going along with it, and then they think they can stop it. But once you get to a point when you sold your soul so much, they own you. In the story. So, I mean, these are realities we're dealing with right now today. So, I mean, this is a scary thought. We're living this stuff. You know, so. Anybody else got, go ahead.
Well, the other one that gets me is try not to use God when you go into that courtroom either. If you even go into the courtroom, stay out of them.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always suggest people put a letter in before you go to the courtroom. And then, because by law, a lawyer can only represent a corporation. And so that's the one thing you ask to put in your letter to the judge. Are you the corporation? And the lawyer is supposed to represent a corporation. So is a representative of the corporation representing my fictitious corporation or the legal man? And remember, legal man is the corporation. So that's the point that people need to comprehend of what these words truly mean. Because legalese is British government, it's not American. That was put in August 21, 1878. The British, what they call that? American Courts Administrative System, 1878. That was after the Civil War. So, I mean, this thing's been implanted for the last 140 years. It hasn't changed. But now we got to the point with the United Nations and the British government is the United Nations. Wake up, folks. Don't be stupid. United Nations is Nazi Germany and the British government, 1945. Type in United Nations Foundation, British government, and Nazi Germany, 1945, you'll come up with it, with original history facts and their plan, one world domination, to put us under the Christian religion. You know, if you ever looked at the patches on Nazi Germany, they're all the Roman Catholic Church and all the Christian patches that even Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler had on his uniforms. The SWAT sticker, you look at that, that goes back to the SWAT sticker back in Jerusalem and Rome. And everybody says, we need to go save Jerusalem. And I'm like, why? Don't people get it? Jerusalem is not your friend. So, it is crazy what's going on. So, anyhow, anybody else like to chime in? Okay.
Yes, I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, earlier you mentioned something about the Bundys, and I couldn't quite understand what was going on with that. I wonder if you could extrapolate.
And what was that? Be specific on what you're asking, please.
Earlier during your comments, you mentioned something about the Bundys.
Yes.
I wasn't real clear on what was going on with that. I just wondered what the deal was.
Oh, yeah, you can pass it on to Ammon and them. I don't have a problem with it. What really gets to me about it, see, Ammon was coming out with there was a 13-year-old girl that was, well, actually me and Michael School, when the Bundys first started with their problems, Michael School and I wrote up a court case for them 5.5 years ago. And we wrote the structure about the nonprofit agencies, the whole structure about the government and how they could have fought it. And how they needed to go to a Supreme Court, not a district court. You know, and if you know the difference, the Supreme Court is under the judicial structure of the Constitution. A district court is a legislative court that's under Roman Catholic Church, the British government. That's called your senators, congressmen. They're legislative courts. So, with the structure, what I was saying on that, you know, we put together this letter, and we were going after Hammond and these guys. Even Carol's like, here's the structure. I mean, I buried Carol and them with so much stuff. And it's like, you know, some of them were leaving. Even Cox, you know, Susie Cox. I mean, I nailed them with all this stuff. And it's like, here's how you guys need to present it. And everybody keeps going, save God and bring this up. And they're going to attorneys. And what was the hell's her name? The one attorney that everybody thinks is so wonderful. Oh, I think, okay, I can see her. She does, I'm on her YouTube deal. Of course, she doesn't allow comments anymore because they put up the fraud that she was being a lawyer. And Kellyanne, what is that the hell is the deal? I'll think of it here in a minute. But anyhow, with the Bundy situation, they kept on bringing up religion and the structure. Nobody's bringing up the Constitution, the Indian treaties, and the rights. So when they went after this little 13-year-old girl here in Oregon, and they were going after her because they went in and said that the state, the county, and this is in Clackamas County, and you know, the district attorney down there says, we're going to take your kid. Your kid's going to get your surgery. The mother says, no, we're trying hemp. We're trying a few other things, so we don't have to do invasive on the child. He's not in terminal position at this point, technically. But if, you know, we don't give it an opportunity to try to naturally heal her, you know, we still could go to the emergency situation of Western medicine, which I'm not arguing with Western medicine because some Western medicine is good, because if it wasn't for Western medicine, more than likely I wouldn't be talking to you right now. But a lot of it I've done herbal, and that's the other point, is a combination of what works and what don't, and doing the research. So with the 13-year-old girl, the court ended up walking into the house, taking the child. They took her to custody for DHS, and they forced the child into surgery. And so Ammon was putting out this thing, you know, cry to all the people about how we need to protect this child and stuff. And I emailed Ammon and messaged him on Facebook, and I have his email too. And, you know, I've even got their phone number, and I've talked to them over time. And it's like, here's the suggestion you guys need to really do, and if you want to make effect. And then it was like, no, everything comes back to religion. And I'm going, religion does not save the child. The only thing that saves the child is the will to live, if that child has the will to live. It's like you or I. The only way that saves us is if we have a will to live. You know, I mean, shit, I've been, you know, what they call legally dead 13 times. Legally. I mean, I sat there when they pulled the blanket over my head, sat up and said, what? I ain't done yet. I ain't done. And everybody's looking at me like, what? You know? There's no bullshit. I've been there. I spent 7.5 months in ICU, hooked up on life support. So when it comes down to that, what disturbs me about it is that nobody is going by the Indian Constitution or the treaties that gives them the rights. Everybody wants to preach religion, but without the native treaties and the Constitution, you have no rights to religion to begin with. There is no God. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, you know, how many times did I hear from people, did you see God when you died? Did you see the shining light? No. The only time I saw the shining light was the operating table with the light on the operating table. Clear memory. Clear focus. So, and I've been through different things where, I mean, I've been through stuff I can't explain to you in a couple situations in life, how I got moved from one place to another out of harm's way in a car wreck or a wreck that happened on the street that if I didn't get moved somehow, I would have been right in the middle of it. You know, I mean, there's certain things that have happened to me in my life that I cannot justify. What I can't say is, you know, what, maybe it is God, but maybe it's not God. Who knows what the power of the be is? So I'm not dishing on that structure because the Constitution gives you the right to believe in your creator, as it really states. It never, ever said God. It always said Creator. And even if you go back to the founding documents of this country, in the Bill of Rights, it says Creator, not God. So it's going back to the original paperwork compared to the Roman Catholic Church, and these preachers have changed stuff to keep you in their midst, because people didn't meet in a church. They used to meet in a gathering. And they used to do food and talk. It wasn't about, we're going to preach God. I mean, it's like a cartoon I put up all the time. It's a cartoon dealing with the colored people, dealing with the cotton picking days. And then it's like, the master comes up to all the slaves and goes, "Don't worry about it, folks. Don't worry about it. After you're done picking cotton tonight, we're going to go talk about the Bible, and we'll teach you about God and your rights." You comprehend that. I mean, this is an actual structure that was done in the South. We're going to go teach you about your God and your rights. So that's what disturbs me when people do this stuff, because it comes down to it. If we're not standing together and knowing that the treaties and the Constitution are the law of the land, not a Bible, not religion, because without that treaty and the Constitution, you have no right to your belief, period, in the story. So it's knowing what the circumstances of your rights are compared to the privileges you think you have. And so, yeah, I got to do that one because it's interesting, because I got to do that in my campaign, because I did think about that when I got pulled over by these guys. How many of these people are United Nations cops now in our system? Because they're slowly putting this stuff in our system. I mean, I read this shit 20 years ago. And I try to explain this to people, and everybody called me I'm crazy. Now we're living it, and they're slowly putting these people into place, and people are like freaking out, and it's like, it's there. I mean, shit, they've been intimidating me for the last couple of years. I'm still, they can go to hell. So, I mean, it's like I called the mayor's office up, and chewed him out because the mayor doesn't like talking to me anymore. City council won't talk to me. I mean, and then the last time I went to a city council public meeting, I was threatened, and I got the YouTube video up on YouTube. I was threatened to be arrested for publicly speaking at a meeting for telling the truth. And, then all of a sudden it was like, I said a couple statements, and then all of a sudden, the mayor says, "Oh, no, he can speak." And then the cop's going, and I finally said, "No, I have no conflict of interest. I'm not going to sit there and be assaulted and shot at." And that's on the YouTube video. And I got up and left the meeting. You're going to threaten me, intimidate me? I know what the hell was going on. I ain't stupid. But the average man or woman go, "Oh, that couldn't happen." They didn't know what they were doing. Quit making excuses for the people who are destroying your life. No offense, but that's where religion comes in, because we've been taught the compassion and religion to turn the other cheek, and that was the one thing. What does turn the other cheek mean? You slap me, I'm going to slap you back. I turn the other cheek, now I'm reacting. Doesn't say I can't react when I turn the other cheek, does it? That's the point. People are not comprehending the reality of what religion even says in the Bible. I mean, if you read Moses, look at what he did when he parted the waters and shit. Then what's his name? Cain, when he killed his brother. I mean, and if people read this stuff, and the Bible is more horrific than most horror films, if you actually comprehend and read the Bible for the words it says, not what you're interpreting, what you've been taught to interpret. And I've gone to churches and Sunday school when we go in and we read a passage, and what do you think the judge meant, or what do you think this passage meant? What do you think Jesus meant in this passage? What do you think what the hell? What do you mean we think? How come we're being mind controlled to interpret things as a lawyer or an attorney? And that's exactly what you're being programmed to interpreting as a lawyer and attorney, and that's what you do in life today. We all do it. Sad but true. So anyway, I didn't mean to go on a rampage. Hopefully I answered some of your questions. If I didn't, please ask further.
No, but one night you're going to have to get into the CAFRs and explain that one to people.
Yeah, I would like to get what's his name on the cappers on my show too.
Jerry Day or
I know Jerry. I haven't talked to Jerry. Me and Jerry were supposed to put something together 2 months ago, but he never got back a hold of me. I got to call Jerry back. I'm not talking to Jerry. I'm talking with
Walter J. Burian.
Yep. I've talked. The interesting story is I met Walter J. Back in 2005 when he was coming through the Senate and House Representatives doing that. He was doing traveling through all the states doing that. When he came to Oregon, I was asked by the Republican Party to go sit down with him for an hour and a half, which I did, and go through things with him and to report back to them. You know, I mean, I was unique. I'm nobody, and I had these people in these positions that, you know, always relied on me because I wouldn't sit there and take a side. I was blunt. And they know it because I wouldn't take a side because I didn't believe in the religion, so I didn't have the side where, you know, I could confuse religion and politics.
Well, and then people can go to his website, CAFR One. So
yes. And please do that. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Don't forget Rob Ryder's site, too. Hit his site. And actually, he's got a hell of a video on how to own yourself.
Yep.
You know. And we'll be doing that one, too, because he has a good one, but I go through it a little deeper because I go through it with the Constitution and treaties, so that way you're filing to own yourself, so that way you own yourself because it becomes your property. Because you have to file to own you. If you don't own you, the state owns you. And that's the point. People still don't comprehend that fact. You know, when you register your kid with the state, you give your authority to the state, and then the lawyers own, the state bar association owns your child. It's that simple. The mother abandons her child and gives the child to the state. And so she gets permission, and that's how the state can come in without a warrant and take your kid. Try to explain that to people. Most people don't comprehend that one. You know, they can't do that. I always love it when people say, oh, they can't do that. And then when they do it, I always get a call going, Ed, you can't believe what they did to me. So, been through that. Many phone calls over the years. So, but yeah, look at these other guys too. Their sites, they have a lot of useful information. Walter has a hell of a lot of good information. And actually, you could even type in your state, because if you type in your state and your county, you could actually go to your county itself and type in your county and then type in the nonprofit registration, police departments, fire departments, the city, county. You'll find out they're all registered as nonprofit agencies. That's under the Secretary of State, but you type it in that way, and you can track it through the Secretary of State. I've done that. And then you get to find out who's the lawyer, because you have one lawyer for each state that owns the state that you're in. One bar member owns the patent for that state corporation.
Yeah, and then the DUNS number should come up, too.
Yes. And then remember, on that DUNS number, it comes to everybody's Social Security number.
Yes.
This is not a joke, folks, that you're living this stuff. It's not a joke. We are physically living this torment and terrorism act right now. So it is horrifying. So, anyway, anybody else got anything they would like to add? So, anyhow, I hope I answered your question on the Bundy situation. You can tell me, I mean, I've been waiting for his call on a few things to, you know, get some things straightened out because it needs to be, you know, this shit needs to be talked out.
No, that was fine. I just thought, I've seen some current activity with Ammon Bundy. He's trying to stir something up about this coronavirus thing, so I thought it might have been about that. I yield.
Yeah. Come around, buddy. We know him. He's fine.
I know.
You know.
I know y'all are friends and shit, but front and center today. Come on.
Yeah, the neighbor's dog showed up. I mean, all the dogs show up in my neighborhood here, so. But I'm just saying is that, you know, that's the one thing that, you know, with them. I mean, I don't even know why the Bundys, you know, they're supposed to have all this cattle and they're fighting to go against the horses so that way they don't have horses competing with their, what they call their open forum. But that open forum is for the horses and cattle. Remember, the cattle came in from Ireland. Cattle is not American product. It was shipped into this country from the Spaniards in Ireland. So, yeah, I do have a conflict with that stuff because the buffalo meat is better than the beef meat, health-wise. But then again, we eat it, so I can't argue with that because it's, you know, we got meat product. So, but yeah, no, I'm not too sure about them on the coronavirus. I got to, because I know that Ammon just put something on the coronavirus day before yesterday up. So I haven't watched that video. I got several videos I haven't caught up on. So, but yeah, it's horrifying we're going through this stuff. And it's horrifying that these men and women that are out there claiming all this religion stuff, and how come if they're religious, how come they don't have the barbecue pits open feeding their communities without charge? Oh, what a concept. Oh, we can't feed our neighbors because if we feed our neighbors, we have to charge them. We're all based on this British monetary system. Pay Caesar what Caesar's due. Die for the king. Die for the Bible. They're just supposed to die for the king. It scares the hell out of me because I won't bow my knee to any king. Sure the hell won't do a curtsy or bow to the queen. I meet the queen, you know, with the same respect that she has the same respect to me. You know, she's not a god. She's no different than me. She bleeds the same way I do. She puts on her pants well, maybe she doesn't put on her pants the way I do. She probably has people that put on her pants. But, you know, I mean, you know, we got to be more realistic in our survival techniques than what we're living. So, anyhow, with that, anybody else would like to add anything? Well, like I said, one thing is please look at Walter G. Browan's site. Definitely go to Rob Ryder. We have it on new.org and trackers. We have his videos on our website. You know, we do have, I don't know, I think we have Walter Browan stuff on the website too. I believe we did. And so I got a few more we'll get posted up there, a few more groups. We're working on it, but it takes a little time because, you know, there's basically only two of us doing this. And so, you know, and we're doing the best we can for what we have in our arsenals and supplies and stuff. So, you know, and then the other point is that me and the producer definitely are looking for anybody who's willing to donate a new computer to either one of us. You know, even a used computer that's been revamped, we could always use something new to help us out. So, you know, putting that out there, you know, because we're always in the supplies ourselves. So, with that, nobody's got anything else to add. With that, we'll like to say thank you for joining us. May the Creator look over you. May Mother Earth feed you. May Father, you know, the Greater, the Great Spirit, take care of you, bring up your kids. Without man and woman, you have no wildlife, you have no children, you have no plants. You know, we can always go back to this, oh, we want to do unisex. Okay, well, see what that does. How many people live with that one? So, I mean, you know, people have a right to whatever they want to be. If they want to be whatever they want to be, they have a constitutional and treaty right to it. But you don't need special privileges or democracy to give it to you. You just have to file the criminal complaints on the perpetrators that are violating your rights. So with that, we'll call it an evening, and we appreciate everybody for joining us, listening, and we'll see you next Saturday, and we'll keep more information up, and I'll get more information posted on the YouTube channel tonight after we're done.
All participants are muted.
Thank you very much for listening to Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. And as for the computer thing, send it to Ed. I'm good with what I got. Now, if you can figure out what better way of internet other than DSL, then yeah, that might be a different thing. But we'll still bring it to you as best we can, and as every weekend, every Saturday. And if the internet goes down, well, hopefully you've learned enough to get your ass out of the fire. Because if the internet goes down all across America or all across the state, you're guaranteed that your ass is already in the fire. You need to figure out how to get it out. So learn as much as you can, as quick as you can, because we don't have much time left. This is not prophecy or anything. This is just me looking at every step that I have learned all the way back from Mount Hill Refuge with the Bundys all the way until now. It is basically they're amping up, getting more and more greedy on their power, and we're pretty much all stuck in the house now because of the COVID thing. Most of us probably already had it, and we got the small form. They need to keep people alive, so there's two different strains of it: the one that'll kill, and the one that'll just make you sick, or maybe not sick at all. And they're getting rid of the elderly with the stronger virus. Why? Because the elderly remembers what it's like to be free, like Ed here. They're getting rid of anybody who's got diabetes, asthma, any of the health conditions that have been cropping up due to the excessive vaccinations that's been happening. Once that is done, you have nothing but a whole bunch of really healthy people that are willing to do anything to be able to make sure that the Big Brother that's pulled them through this crisis, anything that Big Brother wants them to do, they'll do because they're grateful. And there you go. You got a whole nation of willing slaves right there. Think on that. So with that, guys, we'll get gone, and we'll see you next week. Bye.